How are y'all? Hey, good to see ya. Happy birthday, Eileen. My name is Cuffy Sullivan, and I am the president of the League of Women Voters of Coastal Georgia. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Telfair's Jepson Center this evening on behalf of the League of Women Voters. We are excited to bring this important Georgia artist to Savannah to talk about art and civic engagement and how artists respond to and communicate societal change. Sheila Pree Bright's series, Young Americans, now part of the Jepson's ongoing exhibit, depicts the latest iteration of a trajectory that the League also has followed since its inception almost 100 years ago. From women's suffrage to the 19th Amendment, through the Civil Rights Movement and the Voting Rights Act, through gerrymandering, changes to campaign finance law, voter apathy, and elections with unexpected outcomes and unintended consequences, the League of Women Voters has stood for the citizens' right to vote. We stand for voters, importantly, including the new generation you will see in Sheila's work. They are more diverse and more vocal and the future of our democracy. At the conclusion of this program, I hope that you'll join us to walk through the gallery and see her work. It's going to be open till 8, and join us downstairs for a reception where you can meet and interact with the artist. I'd now like to introduce Rachel Reese, the Associate Curator of Modern and Contemporary Art, who will tell us a little bit about Complex Uncertainties, the exhibit that Sheila's work is part of, and introduce our guest artist. Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you, Cuffy, for the warm welcome, and I want to second her welcome for you all to the Jepson Center this evening. In September 2016, I reinterpreted our modern and contemporary collection and gave it a long-term home here at the Jepson Center called Complex Uncertainties, Artists in Postwar America. This gallery offers space to think about artistic response to national and world events, to provide space for complex identities, to challenge power structures, and importantly, to assert that artists hold powerful voices in society. Incorporating Sheila's work and her Young Americans series is an obvious conversation we want to host. So I want to thank the League of Women Voters of Coastal Georgia here in Savannah for their generous support and visionary partnership for tonight's event. A lot has changed in our cultural and political landscape since the 2016 election. So we believe in creating space for focused conversation between the visual arts and civic engagement. As Cuffy mentioned, the galleries are open till 8 p.m. this evening, so after the program, I encourage you to wander upstairs and see other newly rotated work that will be on view through December 10th, including a selection of photographs by Fred Baldwin, taken in 1963 during the Civil Rights Movement here in Savannah, when he was a volunteer photographer for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, that particularly speak to civic engagement by Black youth in Savannah at the time, including images of campaigning, voter registration, balloting, and student organizing. And I know Sheila will be speaking on her other project, 1960 Now, this evening, which has a strong connection to this work. Before I introduce Sheila, I just want to mention a few upcoming events here happening at the museum this week. For more than a decade, Telfair has been presenting programs observing Juneteenth, which is the oldest commemoration of the end of slavery in the United States. This year, the museum will offer 2 Juneteenth programs. This Friday night, June 8th at 6 p.m., there will be a lecture entitled Reverend George Lyle's Journey from Savannah Baptist to Rastafari by Kingston, Jamaica-based lawyer and scholar Miguel A. Lorne. Lorne will tell the amazing story of the Reverend George Lyle, who was born enslaved and attained his freedom and became a pastor whose followers organized the oldest African-American congregations in pre-Revolutionary War America, including followers who would form First African Baptist Church and First Bryan Baptist Church here in Savannah. He fled Savannah after the Revolution, becoming the first missionary from America to Jamaica, where his teachings later influenced the Rastafari faith. And then this Saturday, June 9th, from 1 to 4 p.m. is our Juneteenth Free Family Day, which will include programming such as basket making and painting demonstrations, new storytelling performances by Jamal Toure and Queen Quet, and a featured performance by the renowned Geechee Gullah Ring Shouters. And then next week, we're installing the work of Atlanta-based artist Pam Longobardi, who is an artist and activist bringing visibility to plastic pollution of our globally shared waterways. We have partnered with Ships of the Sea Museum and are hosting a community conversation with Longobardi as moderator next Friday, June 15th from 6 to 8 p.m., hosted in the Ships of the Sea North Garden Assembly Room, free and open to the public. If you're interested in learning how you can make an impact with regards to eliminating single-use plastics and reducing plastic pollution, I would encourage you to attend. And on the panel, among others, will be Jason Walterman, the mayor of Tybee Island. All of these events are free and open to the public thanks to investment from the City of Savannah. And you can always find these events on the telfair.org webpage under Events Calendar. Sheila Pree Bright is an acclaimed fine art photographer known for her photographic series Young Americans, Plastic Bodies, and Suburbia. She received national attention shortly after earning her MFA in photography from Georgia State University. In 2013, while photographing under-recognized living leaders of the civil rights movement, she made a connection between today's times and the climate of the 1960s that inspired her 1960 Now project. 1960 Now examines race, gender, and generational divides to raise awareness of millennial perspectives on civil and human rights, and will be published by Chronicle Books in October of this year. Bright's work is in major public and private collections, including, among others, the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., the High Museum of Art in Atlanta, and the David C. Driscoll Center at the University of Maryland. Please join me in welcoming Sheila Pree Bright.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to thank Rachel for putting that exhibit together and the women, what is it? I always say that, League of Women Voters. I really thank you, and I'm very humbled to stand before all of you to talk about my work as an artist. And I'm a daughter of a soldier. This is my father. He lived in a little town in Waycross, Georgia here, actually, and he actually got into the Army, not of his choice, but he had to go and leave the town. And what I would like to say, I'm sorry, because I've been kind of running all day with that, is that I'm a fine art photographer and a visual culture producer, and I'm interested in the lives of individuals and communities that are often unheard and often misunderstood. I use the medium of photography to show us, I capture images to show us the experience of the unheard while they voice their opinions and ideals that are shaping their world. And so I created a body of work actually in 2006, Young Americans. And actually when I go through this work, I like to create that. So if anybody needs to ask me a question, I would really enjoy that. That would help with that. But in 2006, I actually created the Young American series. I just recently, about 2 or 3 years, got out of college. And I was thinking about young people because President Obama actually announced his presidency, I think, in 2009. But in 2006, the young people, the millennials at the time that they were calling them, was that they're the largest generation in history. And they're the most diverse generation in history. They're not like the Xers or the baby boomers. It's black and white, black and white. It's not like that at all. And during that year, a lot of people were talking to me about how they're not really connected to the human being. They're more connected to technology. And I'm like, no, there's something in every generation something that they have, you know? And so I started with Young Americans, And I woke up. I said, how am I going to photograph them? And I woke up and I said, you're going to photograph them with the flag. And my father's in the service, I understand about the aesthetic of the flag. And if I really thought hard about it, I wouldn't have done the project at all. But I said, I'm going to do this. So I received a major grant from the Aetna Foundation. And I traveled across the country. I gave the young people a flag. I told them they could do whatever they want to do with it. I was actually the observer. I didn't tell them what to do. The only question that I asked them, what does it mean to be an American in the 21st century? And this is Morgan. She's actually from California. And I photographed her in Atlanta. She was going to the HCBU University at Clark Atlanta. And she said, I'm a confused Black woman. She said, what other better place to be is in America, but it's the racism when it comes to Black bodies. So she came in like Statue of Liberty with the Black Power fist on there. Jordan. I'm not going to tell you guys everything about them. I want you to guys look at it in your thoughts, and maybe after, if there's an image that really strikes you, I'll tell you about it, because sometimes the text and the image may not match to you. This is one of the images in the show of Jenny Lou. You guys said, ooh. You have any questions? It's the G.I. Joes. He's a sacrifice. This is Brian. He is on the altar of a sacrifice. He didn't like what was going on at the time in the Iraq War and how they treated gay men in there. So if you notice, he have G.I. Joes on top of each other where his private part is. Julia. One thing about this work, and I was very surprised, everyone that I photographed, they didn't do the same pose at all. They were so excited, had so much energy. They said, nobody's never asked us that question, number one, and we've never had this experience with the flag. This is also in the show. Can I ask a question? Yes. Are you shooting them individually or are they in group? Actually, I'm shooting them individually. When I was in California, I was actually at a university, and the young students were all in the hallway. They were so excited. They write down their statements. And I asked some of them if they wanted to do it together. Some of them would, and some of them would not. I think it's a private thing with it. It was a lot of private with some of them. This is Phoebe. She talks about how her generation is going to have to take on the burden of America. But what still remains is the stars and stripes. I found this image very interesting. He is Latino. And this show was premiered at the High Museum in 2008. And when some people saw this image, they thought that he was actually spitting on the flag. But he was actually talking about his love of America and kissing it and embracing it. Myra. She's from Africa, and you're going to have to forgive me, I forgot which part, Senegalese. And she talked about, she used the flag as a garb of her tradition and talked about if she wasn't here in America, she would be dead. She was 19 at the time. And one thing about this body of work, I decided to only shoot the young Americans from 18 to 25 because I felt that was the time when they were coming out of the home of their parents and they're developing their own ideologies about everything and not being influenced at all. They're not with their parents.
Would you tell us what year or years you photographed?
I started in 2006 and I ended in 2008. The High Museum show was actually in the summer in 2008. And I actually photographed over 100 images, and there was only 35 images in the show. This is Madeline. I photographed her in California, and she talked about how, like what's going on right now, is how the immigrants, especially the Muslim culture, is how they've been profiling. So she actually in a garb right now, and she scribbled, and actually it was something that she had to remember, actually, and it just worked out real well. This is Terrence. I find this image very interesting about what's going on right now with the NFL and with Colin Kaepernick. And this kind of blew me away because when I started to put this presentation together, because I'm bringing the young Americans out, is I was like, wow, he has the flag on him and he's kneeling and he's praying. This one too kind of blew me away. It made me think about the police shootings around the country starting in 2013 when the young people first started laying out, the black, laying out. This is Jody in California. She spoke upon how everybody loves black, but nobody wants to be, well, I always say things backwards. Nobody wants to be black at all, and how she is looked at as invisible. And she wanted us to, and we had to bring other people in there because I had to come up with, how you want me to do this? So we had to do these takes where she threw the flag, well, they threw the flag and I had to capture the image like she's running away. And this is all done in the studio. So in 2012, I came from museums and galleries straight out of grad school. And there's nothing wrong with the museums or galleries, but you only hit a certain amount of people that comes into the galleries and the museums. And what I wanted to do was bring this work to the masses of the people because I felt that it was very important. And this is Wheat Paste. I actually these are 30-feet murals on the David T. Howard Building in Atlanta, Georgia. This is where Martin Luther King actually went to school. If you want to say it like this, middle school. It wasn't called middle school back then. And I felt that this was a very important historical building to put these images up here in Atlanta because it's like the home of the civil rights movement. And from there, in 2000, while I was working in 2012, I really enjoyed doing Wheat Paste. And I really this is Joshua, and he talks about the song Kanye West is that you could have all this stuff, like you could be a celebrity, the car, everything, but you still a nigga, okay? And this is what he said, this is a quote. And so it's like he's looking at the flag and it's like how far we have come, but not really. And so since this is a Wheat Paste, it's like the deterioration of the flag now. Yeah, it's really actually peeling off. In 2013, Trayvon Martin happened. And I'm always engaging and thinking about young people because it really actually relates to me. When I was young, people did not listen to me, okay? And I'm like, I'm here. And I'm very shy and very introverted. In my upbringing, my younger years, I lived in Germany. And I just remember my mother would have us on the trains and stuff, and as a child, you don't understand. You think you're the same as everybody else. Everybody wanted to touch our skin and our hair, and I'm like, why is my mom letting them touch our skin and our hair. I didn't understand it at the time. And then when we would go to us on the Army base would go over to the German town, the German kids would call us the N-word. That hurt my feelings so bad when I was young. Like I'm an introvert, I would always read books. I did not want to be black. I wanted to be Jewish. Isn't that funny? That's still bad, right? Isn't it? So I think this is what kind of shaped me as an artist, because I didn't really know that I was going to be an artist at all. My father said, you're going to do something creative, but he didn't know what it was at all. It wasn't until after my undergrad, I took a photography course. And I was like, wow, that's how I can talk through the camera, through people. So that's how I actually started in photography. And that brings me back to young people again. And when Trayvon Martin happened, I started thinking about the young people during the civil rights movement, because they changed the face of the nation. They were 18 and 19, just like the young people today with the 1960 Now series. And so I went and I found Mr. Lonnie King, and he started the Atlanta Student Movement. He is 80-something years old now, and his PhD at Georgia State, and he's going to write a book about the movement. And this is Dr. Rosalind Pope, and she went to Spelman at the time, and she authored The Appeal of Human Rights. And they were young people. They got kicked off of campus. Now, they went to black colleges. They got kicked off of campus, says, y'all don't need to start. They said, we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. We're going to do this. So I started the project. Go ahead.
Have you gotten any negative feedback from people who feel you're disrespecting the flag? And if so, how would you respond?
Actually, no. Because let me tell you this story. I didn't let my father know that I was working on this, number one. And number two, when I mostly finished the project, I actually took large images, about 6 of them, to him. I said, I want you to see something. Laid them all on the floor. He walked around silent, and he looked at me and he said, those are beautiful. So that was my confirmation. And I think that when it comes to the flag, and it would be interesting now for this work to come back out because of the critical time in our country, it's going to get a lot of fallback from it, okay? But I think it's good, because we look at this flag as a symbol. It's like, I know the aesthetic of it. You're not on the floor, hold it or something. You're not supposed to drape it. But look at everybody else. We commercialize. Everybody's wearing prints of shirts of America, everything. So I just look at it that way. And I said, if I think, you have to think out of the box with that. Because with my work, like I said before, I'm trying to give a voice to the unheard, and I'm trying to bring people together and uplift everybody. Because we tend to, if I could say it like this, it's like we're still in our own little tribes. We have the Me Too, we have the Parkland movement, we have all these movements now. But are we really together? Yeah. Yeah. I haven't shown you all of them. There was one. Actually, I thought I had it in here, but I don't. Because a lot of times with these presentations, you got to move real fast. There's one guy that's regurgitating the flag out of his mouth, and I have a book that I can show you. And basically, he was talking about we're a nation of immigrants, and what the United States do is we put each other against each other. And he was regurgitating the flag out to bring everybody together. But if you look at it, you wouldn't think about that at all. Okay?
But would you say that despite the diversity of the genders and race, I guess what brought everyone together was that they each respected the flag, and no one tried to tear the flag or burn the flag?
Yeah, you're the reporter that interviewed me, right? Okay. Well, what I did tell Antoine, right? Okay, I remember the name, yes. One thing that I found with the flag, they were very conscious about the flag. I had one girl that says, "Oh, we can't touch the floor," when I'm staying with myself. And I felt that they really respected the flag. I thought somebody would want to burn it or something. Maybe they would do it now. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, because a lot of people want me to reach back and do this, but I feel that I've done that and I need to evolve from that. But I don't know. It's really interesting when it comes to our country and the flag and what it really means, what it really, really, really means. So I started 1960 now, from the Young Americans to 1960, who the elders in the Civil Rights Movement, because I, as an artist, felt that I needed to go to the ground to find out what was going on. I really did. Because I was in the studio photographing the elders from the Civil Rights Movement. So I engaged with the young people in Black Lives Matter. And one thing about Black Lives Matter, a lot of people, the way the media I call it propaganda, it's a terrorist group. No, it's not. 3 African-American women, 2 of them from the LBGTQ community, actually started the hashtag. And it was when Trayvon Martin got murdered and Zimmerman got off, and they wanted to uplift Black folks. But we're putting this on social media, right? So when you see hashtag Black Lives Matter, everybody feels like, well, everybody's lives matter. But they were not talking to everybody. They were talking to Black folks to uplift them. It was like James Brown. I take it back to James Brown. Say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud. He got a lot of slack from that and lost a lot of his following from that. And all he was trying to do was uplift Black folks. That's it. This is Bree Newsom. She took down the Confederate flag. This is Mickey B., LBGTQ community. And this is Emiko. She is with the DACA, the Dreamers. So these young people are feeling the same way that they felt back then, especially within the African American culture. In 2015, this photograph was taken in Atlanta. And Ariel called me. She said, "Sheila, we need you to get down here because we're getting ready to shut down the Martin Luther King parade." Now, that's the home of the civil rights, Black folks, and with Martin Luther King, right? They shut this down. You didn't see it in the media at all. And you see that hashtag? It's hashtag Reclaim Martin Luther King Day. It was about we are sick and tired of y'all commercializing Martin Luther King. I have a dream. He's much more than a dream. He was about resistance. So they're taking on the torch to continue what was left off from him. Because if you think about it, everybody loves Martin Luther King. But when he was alive, no, they did not. And when he actually started trying to bring everybody together, the poor people and economics, what happened? This is all in Atlanta. Black trans lives matter. That's Ariel. This is all in Atlanta. In my work, with this body of work, 1960 now, I wanted to go on the ground, and I wanted to show, and people are very confused. They said, "We used to read about this in the books, and this is really happening in real time right now." This is a young girl. I shot her in Atlanta. She was actually holding up, we was in the middle of the night in rain, and she was standing on an American flag. And you know what the media is going to do. They're going to photograph her standing on the American American flag, holding the liberation flag. But what I saw was the intensity of her eyes and the sadness in her eyes, and that's what I focus on. And a lot of this work to me is about, is portraits too, if you could look at it that way.
Why didn't they say Black Lives Matter too?
Black life.
That people might understand what I think you're saying it meant. That Black Lives Matter also, or Black Lives Matter too.
Well, at the time, that's what they were thinking about, Black Lives Matter. But when you put it out into the public, it's like you're always showing the culture what they need to say. But this is what they feel that they need to say, Black Lives Matter. Now, people take it wrong, you know, that kind of way, but Black Lives Matter. Black lives, my ancestors came over here from slavery. And we have constantly, believe it or not, psychologically so, have lived in terror and it's stress, anxiety, and trauma, really trauma, to be honest with you. This goes really, really deep. I did a body of work called Suburbia in the 21st century, and that's when I won a major award, and I don't have that image up, but since you brought that question up, I called it Suburbia. And I did not show, I showed the interiors of the homes, okay? And if you saw a black body, you might see a woman laying in a bed, but you won't see her face. You would see, she's reading the Times magazine, and the face on there becomes that. I won this award, and when I went to, I had to speak, and I had to have photo editors, curators look at the work. You know what they told me? We never heard of your Suburbia. You don't have enough signifiers in the work to show that these are black homes. So a negative stereotype is unconsciously, I believe, that's ingrained in all of us, and we don't really realize what we're doing. We really don't. And I think as an artist, and my civic duty is to talk about this work, because we talk about safe places, but we don't talk about brave places. When are we going to be able to sit down as people, all of us, and really hash this out and start a healthy dialogue, not about all of us screaming and yelling at each other, okay? This is all Ferguson. We love our people, and we will be there until justice is done. I saw the pain. I saw the hurt. And you see there's the flag. The flag is in distress when it's upside down like that. And one thing, I was in Baltimore when Freddie Gray passed that Sunday. And even though I'm African American, I'm not really connected to the community. That Monday when the young people started doing the protests, I went to West Baltimore. I got totally cussed out. Told me they didn't want me there, white people there, or the media there, because the only time when you come in our neighborhoods is to talk about something negative. You're not there when we're trying to do something good in the neighborhood. It's always the negative, the negative, the negative. And it was so amazing because when I got there, right in the middle, it was so tense. You have the police station, and it was wrapped up with the yellow tags, and you had all the reporters there, right? And by the time you see on CNN or some of the news reporter of a black person might be like very angry, do you understand why it's like that? The reporters are constantly have the cameras in their faces, and they said, man, I told you to get the camera out my face, and they will not do it. And by the time you see it on the television, he's an angry black man. This is Baltimore. It's all Baltimore. And that's why they say Black Lives Matter. You see all those names on there? Tons of names. And this is not really, since we have technology, it's been going on, but since we have technology and everybody with their smartphones, we could show it now. One thing that Mr. King told me, he says, what took us 15 to 20 years to do, this generation could take it in a second over media. And it was all about disruption. This is the Justice League that marched from New York to DC, and they actually delivered a package. And one thing about the movement, too, it is really run by women and the LGBT community, too. That's what I wanted to say earlier. You remember the image of the young girl with the flag? That's what I was thinking about. These were Dianes. And this is the justice package. They're just not protesting on the streets. Didn't Martin Luther King says protest is for the, what was that quote that he had? Do anybody remember? Protest is for the, I can't remember, but I'll get it. But they delivered the justice package about police brutality. This was I'm back in Atlanta now. Through all this 4 years, I was actually on the ground photographing, lecturing, and doing exhibits. I don't know how I did this, actually. I really don't, because as soon as I couldn't even keep up with the killings. This was the back-and-back killing of Philip Castillo and Austin Sterling in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Is my daddy next? You see the emotions, even with the officers? It's very, very uncomfortable. This was in Atlanta. They had the state troopers, the GBI, everybody that you could think of. This is, if anybody's from Atlanta, this is in front of Lenox Mall. Right.
As a photographer, as an artist who's trying to say something more than just this is the news, this is what this looks like, how do you make that shift in your own work and your own approach to it?
I think it was very easy for me because I didn't tell you about the beginning of my, when I left college. I went to Houston, Texas, and I was around gangster rap. Very naive, you guys. Think about coming from the Army. And I was around guys, I said, I want to photograph rappers. I photographed rappers, Scarface, Ice Cube. And when I first started, I was around guys that didn't know that they were drug dealers. Can you believe it or not? I went to the house and all these guys, I don't have this image up here yet either, I should have it. I had all these guys and I'm like, what are y'all doing? And they looked at me. They came, because I was shooting an album cover, right? And they came out with these AK guns, and I'm like, are those real? They said, where you come from? You're like a white girl in a black body. I was very naive, but you know what? I think that plays an important part in your role, because if you knew, you wouldn't do it. Like today now, I probably wouldn't, maybe so. My husband didn't want me to go to Baton Rouge when Alton Sterling got killed, because I had just came back. I forgot where I was at, and I said, I'm going. He said, you're not going. I said, I'm going. He said, well, I'm going to go with you. So we drove to New Orleans. We got a hotel in Baton Rouge, is about 40 minutes from New Orleans. We got in the hotel. I had my camera bag on there, and I ran out of the room, and I said, have no fear, because I did not want him to go with me, because he would have told me, we need to get the hell out of here. And I said, no, we got to stay. So I left. I'm like my father, you guys, okay? I think that's what it is. I can't breathe. This was the first time when I saw, this is in Atlanta, when Alton and Philip Castillo got shot, murdered, actually. The students from all of the universities came together, and that's when I saw more young whites come out. And this is a 16-year-old girl, and she told her father, I gotta come. And they did a silent march. Andrew Young, 7 days straight, they protested in Atlanta. And Kasim, the mayor, was mad, okay? And Andrew Young got on national TV and called them unlovable brats, so guess what they did? They are very creative, okay? This is Baton Rouge. The Crips and the Bloods came out. Said, we're tired of being killed. We got a truce. When I was in Stone Mountain, I have a video where they talked about that. Young boy with a gang, no justice, no peace.
Your work is very striking, and it just draws me into the feeling I get. Do you care to plug what kind of equipment you use in some of these?
I tell everybody it's not the equipment. I have $50,000 cameras. I got a $12,000 camera. Guess what I shot this with? No, not with my iPhone. I actually shot it with a Micro Four Thirds camera. It's a very small camera. It's not intimidating, and I engage with the people a lot. I feel them. I'm not just clicking the camera, click, 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 hoping I get. I'm looking for that moment, and then I'm hitting the shutter, clicking on the shutter. This is in DNC. That was a hot mess, you guys. There was a protest within a protest within a protest. Young people from all over came to Philadelphia, DNC. Guess what they wanted to do? They wanted to overthrow Hillary and bring in Bernie. They wanted to bring in Bernie. I don't know if anybody watched CNN. If you could think about, if you guys watched the Democratic convention, I could see it, maybe because I was on the ground. Bernie was not feeling right. What was going on was that you had the delegates, they stormed a media tent, and they wanted to have their voices to be heard. They wouldn't let them be heard. They started locking the doors so they couldn't get back in. And I met this guy from, I forgot which, New Hampshire. He said, we're going to do for a call for action. And I said, what are you going to do? He said, I'm not going to tell you, not right now. But all between all that time, they were trying to overthrow the nomination and have Bernie in there, okay? Bernie had to come out to all of them and say, look, leave it alone. Let her have it. They had this big protest. The Black Lives Matter was in the forefronts with F-150s. You had all the Bernie supporters in the back. We marched from the courthouse all the way to Wells Fargo Center. By that time, nighttime came, there was another group with these big Bernie signs. They were converging right here. And they wanted to know who they were. And I said, well, that's Black Lives Matter with the rest of the people. They said, hell yeah, we got the Black Lives Matter people. You know what the Black Lives Matter people told them? Y'all ain't about no goddamn liberation. They went their way and they went that way. I'm just being straight up with you guys. We are not starting a race war. We're trying to end one. And that's what I think Black Bodies has always tried to do. Never try to take over the country. They love the country just as much as everybody else do. My father, I really didn't know a lot about his experience in the Army until now. He passed in 2010, and my mother's talking. He had a lot of trouble in the service as a young Black male. And it was very painful for him. But one thing that he did do, he's the one that put me in grad school. He said, there's something about this photography that you like and you're going to grad school. And I went home and I documented him for 2 weeks, tried to ask him about the Vietnam War, would not talk. The last time that I went, he started crying. He said, I had to do what I had to do for my country. And he let me take that last shot, and he said, that's enough. And I'm going to leave you with this. Do I click this for it to? Here it is.
I remember you was conflicted, misusing your influence. Sometimes I did the same, abusing my power full of resentment that turned into a deep depression. I found myself screaming in the hotel room. I didn't want to self-destruct. The evils of Lucy was all around me. So I went running for answers.
I would not say that the civil rights movement is dead. It's simply that we are moving to a new phase of the movement. For well now 12 years, we struggled to end legal segregation and all of the humiliation surrounding legal segregation. So it was a struggle for decency. It was a struggle to get rid of extremist behavior toward Negroes. Now we are in a new phase, and that is a phase where we are seeking genuine equality, where we are dealing with hard economic and social issues. And it means that the job is much more difficult. It's much easier to integrate a lunch counter.
From this day forward, we will say the people woke up again. Yeah. And we started to treat Martin Luther King Day as a day of resistance for a resistant, militant fighter. Yeah. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. It is our duty to win. We must love each other and support each other.
I saw in the faces of young, black, angry, queer, single mothers, kids with tattoos, sagging their pants, standing up before tanks and tear gas night after night. And so it changed me. It changed my belief in the capacity of the church to be able to support and celebrate our children who are victimized daily.
Our streets! Whose streets? Our streets! Whose streets? Our streets! Whose streets? Our streets! Whose streets? Our streets! Give us our streets! We'll shut shit down! Give us our streets! We'll shut shit down! We shut shit down! We shut shit down! No peace! No justice! No peace! No justice! No peace! No peace! United we stand! Divided we fall! 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 Show me what democracy looks like! This is what democracy looks like! Show me what democracy looks like! This is what democracy looks like!
Dr. King's policy was that nonviolence would achieve the gains for black people in the United States. His major assumption was that if you are nonviolent, if you suffer, your opponent will see your suffering and will be moved to change his heart. That's very good. He only made one fallacious assumption. In order for nonviolence to work, your opponent must have a conscience. The United States has none.
There are days, one of them, when you wonder what your role is in this country and what your future is in it. From my point of view, no label, no slogan, no party, and no skin color, and indeed no religion is more important than a human being.
Abusing my power full of resentment. Resentment that turned into a deep depression. Found myself screaming in the hotel room. I didn't want to self-destruct. The evils of Lucy was all around me. So I went running for answers.
Intellectually, don't walk away once we start talking. That's the problem with that media. Because you want to report that we're thugs and we're breaking shit down. You got this shit. all these black folks. We're the ones that need protection. Report for us. You're working for Fox News. Adam Jackson just went on Sean Hannity. Why are you running away? I'm not running. He got Corona on the run, y'all. He got Corona on the run. Talk to me. He just talked to me. Yeah, because you're not right. But listen, a black man can raise his voice. A black man can raise his voice, and you don't have to be intimidated. Because I want you and Fox News to get out of Baltimore City. Because you're not here reporting about the boarded up homes and homeless people under MLK. You're not reporting about the poverty levels up and down North Avenue. 2 years ago, when the 300-man march, we marched from the top of Hilton to from Hilton and North to Milton and North, you weren't here. But you're here for the black riots that happened, right? You're not here for the death of Freddie Gray. You're here for the story. No, I want to talk to you without the cameras.
Where were our brothers and sisters to stand with us? Where were the clergy people to stand with us? Where were the politicians to stand with us?
An artist's duty, as far as I'm concerned, is to reflect the times. I think that is true of painters, sculptors, poets, musicians. As far as I'm concerned, it's their choice. But I choose to reflect the times and the situations in which I find myself. That to me is my duty. And at this crucial time in our lives, when everything is so desperate, when every day is a matter of survival, I don't think you can help but be involved. Young people, black and white, know this. That's why they're so involved in politics. We will shape and mold this country, or it will not be molded and shaped at all anymore. So I don't think you have a choice. How can you be an artist and not reflect the times?
We ought to come together. And we should not let no police, let no hater, let no spectator, or let somebody, listen, look around you. They don't live around here. They don't know what we go through. And it's time for them to start saying how we live. It is not right how we're living. We love each other. We love each other, and they want us to kill each other. We love each other. Unity. United we stand. Divided we fall. And divided we fall. No justice. No peace. No justice. No peace. No justice. No peace. And support each other. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our change. We have nothing to lose but our change. Thank you.
Okay. What I'd like to leave you with is this. 2018 is not ordinary. It's really a reality, but it's yet so surreal. And I believe that early on when I spoke is that we really need brave spaces for us to come together and to create dialogue and really come together. And me as an artist, I use my artwork as a form of activism to be able to create these dialogues where we can come together. And I want to say thank you. Also, too, the gallery's open. It's open to 8 o'clock, Rachel? Yeah.